Hello everyone, been a while since I've been here on AA Culture, but I do have some stuff coming up because recently I've just finished watching the final season of Cobra Kai, which I started watching over Christmas, and pretty much it's the only TV show I've stuck with all the way to the end since Game of Thrones, and for my money, Cobra Kai is the best TV show in recent history. I actually checked it out after a throwaway comment by Vox Day, of all people, who mentioned, in passing that Cobra Kai is the best show on television. I was like, oh, that's an interesting... Why would Vox Day be bigging up like a Netflix series? But then at Christmas time, I was over my parents' house and, I was in the kind of doldrums of Christmas, kind of bored one morning. Everybody else was still in bed. And I just started watching Cobra Kai, and then the missus came down, and I said, I'll watch episode 1 again with you, because the premise of this show is incredible. Basically, Johnny Lawrence is the main, the person who Danny LaRusso from the original Karate Kid faces in Karate Kid 1. The guy who gets the kick to the face at the end, the blonde teenage guy. Well, basically, he took that loss very badly, and Cobra Kai picks up the story 35 years later, and we basically, he's kind of been a bit of a loser. He's kind of, his life fell apart, really, after that massive loss. And as we pick up the show, he's taken to drink, and the premise of a TV show about basically a bad guy henchman or thug, it, to me, was incredible. Like, it was just incredible that this show was made, that we'd actually pick up the story of this character. And it's got lots of, like, cool little things, because clearly he was, like, the bad guy. And, ultimately there's a kind of character arc and so on. But the basic premise, it is incredible. Why am I recommending this show? Well, first of all, I'm going to make a much longer show, much longer video, where I'm going to talk spoiler. Right, this is a spoiler-free video, but in a subsequent video, I'm going to break down this show, all of the different characters. I'm going to rank some of the fighters. I'm going to talk about what was good and what wasn't, what worked, what didn't, and I want to do that. But for this video is just to say you should watch Cobra Kai if you haven't watched it. One of the biggest things it has going for it, in my view, is that it is a non-woke, it is an explicitly anti-woke program, okay? Johnny Lawrence has got this idea that the kids these days are pussies, right? And he says it all the time. Pussy, like he said, stop being a pussy, And as I think the story starts in 2018, right? So it was like peak woke era, and there's this high school, and it's just rampant bullying. Like the world of Cobra Kai is just bullying all the time. Everyone is a colossal bully in this, and the woke kind of administrators of the school, the way they deal with it, using their woke tactics and so on, all it ever does is make the problem worse. Okay, so Johnny Lawrence comes along and he's like, right, I'm going to reopen Cobra Kai, and he takes on a few students, and he basically teaches them to fight, to stand up for themselves, to stop being nerds and things like this. And I instantly understood why Vox Day recommended this show, because what this show does is it injects a masculine response to a feminized world. Right, and Johnny is an almost unrealistically retrograde character, right? Like it's like he went to sleep in 1984, and he like the past 35 years has passed him by. He's never been on Facebook. He doesn't know how to use the internet. He doesn't know what Twitter is. He's completely like a boomer when it comes to tech, but also he's like completely politically incorrect, and he wants things to be badass and not pussy and all this sort of stuff. And what's really interesting about the show is that obviously Daniel LaRusso, his arch rival from back in high school, He teaches Miyagi style, Miyagi-Do style. And his hero is Mr. Miyagi, which is all about defense. And Cobra Kai is all about, strike first, no mercy. And it really goes in depth, I think, at analysing these two different approaches. And what's really interesting about the show, in my opinion, is that over the course of 6 seasons, it actually comes to some conclusions that the liberals in the audience may not like, right? Okay, the full-on Cobra Kai is a bit too, if taken to an extreme, right, it's a bit too much. But fundamentally, there is something true about the approach. There's something true about the kind of kick-ass style when faced with a world which has been feminized. So this is just a short video, basically, to recommend this show. And then down the line, maybe in a week's time, I'm going to do a much longer video breaking down all the various parts of this show. I'm going to nerd out a little bit and talk about all the different fighters and, who I liked and who I didn't. One of the things I'll just say is that, surprise, surprise, folks, I have been a big John Kreese fan. I became a massive... He's one of the best bits of the show, John Kreese. If you remember him from the original Karate Kids. That's a little bit of a spoiler because he's not in season 1, but, he comes into it. And that is one of the, most powerful bits of TV I've seen in recent times. I'll also say, some people may have started watching it and gone off it. And, right, it does come good in the end, in my opinion. Season 5 has a bit of a dip and there's a couple of filler episodes here and there, but generally speaking, it's consistently very good. Okay. It does get extremely cheesy at times, but that is part of the show's charm, that it's prepared sometimes to go full 80s cheese, and it's prepared to kind of, in a way it's self-aware, but it's also unreconstructed. And like I said, absolutely no wokery whatsoever. I will say, obviously, there's, they're not going to touch issues like race or gender and so on, but that barely comes into the show at all, right? Because the main thing is teaching these kids how to be kick-ass and how to stand up for themselves in basically a hostile world, right? There's even a scene where one of the characters is reading Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan. So it is, I think it's one of the more penetrating mainstream cultural critiques of wokeism to be produced in the past 5-6 years. All right, all of that said, I'll be back next week with a much more in-depth, spoilerific exploration of this phenomenal show. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. You can join the channel for thousands of hours of past shows in the archive and hundreds of videos. If you have any questions, you can leave a super chat or a super thanks, and I'll be sure to pick it up during my weekly office hours, which run every Tuesday afternoon. I also provide courses at the academic agency, which I encourage people to buy. Thousands of students now have taken the Trivium to improve their skills in writing, logic, and rhetoric. Just 3 of many courses available. Buy it now. But most importantly of all, friends, get out.